"You are too nice, I need a bad boy," she said. And she found her bad boy, who was bad at everything including keeping a job. And she found out nice guys own houses while bad boys couch surf. So alright Reddit, buckle up because the story is wild. My girlfriend told me I was too nice and she needed someone with more edge. And 6 months later she is sleeping on couches while her bad boy cannot hold a job. Here is how being boring and stable became my best revenge. I am 32, male, and live in Colorado with not the most exciting career, but it pays well and I am good at it. I spent the last decade working my way up from entry level to senior project manager. Started as a junior engineer making 50 grand a year working on municipal projects nobody cared about, like storm drains and traffic studies. The kind of work that keeps cities running but does not win awards. And now I manage teams on commercial developments and infrastructure upgrades where the pay jumped significantly and I made smart decisions with that money instead of blowing it on fancy cars. I own a 3-bedroom house in a decent neighborhood that I bought 5 years ago. Nothing fancy, but it is mine. I got a good interest rate, have been making extra payments when I can, and the property value has increased about 30% since purchase. The house needed work when I bought it, which is why I got it at a decent price, so I spent weekends updating the kitchen, refinishing hardwood floors, replacing fixtures, and learned most of it from online tutorials and my dad. My truck is a 2015 Ford that I bought used and paid off 2 years ago, and it runs great with no monthly payment. I have a solid retirement account, an emergency fund covering 6 months of expenses, and generally have my life together in ways that make financial advisors nod approvingly. My weekends consist of hiking with my dog Cooper, who is a 4-year-old golden retriever mix I adopted from a shelter. We hit the trails every Saturday morning and sometimes Sunday too, and I also have ongoing home improvement projects and hang out with friends, mostly guys from college who are in similar life stages where we grab food, watch sports, and play video games, normal guy stuff. A pretty standard life that is not exciting but comfortable and stable. I have a routine, goals, and I am working toward them methodically. My girlfriend Ashley, who is 28, female, and I had been together for 3 years after meeting through mutual friends at a barbecue in the summer 3 years back on a perfect Colorado afternoon with mountains visible in the distance and everyone relaxed. She was friends with my buddy Derek's girlfriend and showed up wearing a sundress, and we ended up talking most of the afternoon. We started dating casually at first with dinner and movies and the usual getting to know you routine. She seemed great, funny, easy to talk to, and attractive, and after 6 months things got serious with her staying over more often, keeping clothes at my place, and meeting my family. She worked as a receptionist at a dental office downtown and made okay money that covered her bills. We split most expenses when we went out. She had her own apartment across town with a roommate but spent probably 4 nights a week at my place. And looking back, there were always little comments that should have tipped me off, because she would mention how one of her coworkers had a boyfriend who rode motorcycles and seemed so free, or how her friend's new guy was spontaneous and exciting, and I would just nod and keep doing my thing thinking she was just making conversation, which was a classic mistake, because the comments started subtle maybe 6 months in, where we would watch a movie and some character would do something impulsive and she would say that is so romantic with a wistful tone, or we would see a guy on a motorcycle and she would comment on how cool that seemed. Little things that did not register at the time. And then there were her friends, because Ashley had this group from high school all in various states of relationship chaos, where one dated a bartender who worked nights and slept all day. Another was with an aspiring actor who worked part-time at a gym, and a third was seeing a guy who lived in his van by choice and called it minimalism. And these women would get together for girls' nights, and Ashley would come home talking about how interesting everyone's relationships were and how her friends' boyfriend surprised her with a trip to the desert. Never mind that she had to pay for it because he was broke, or how another guy wrote poetry while ignoring that he was 32 and lived with his parents. I would listen and nod, not seeing the pattern, but looking back, Ashley was comparing our stable relationship to her friend's exciting dysfunction and finding ours lacking. And there were other signs too, because she started suggesting we do more spontaneous things like driving to the mountains at midnight to watch the sunrise, which sounded romantic until you factored in work the next morning and mountain roads in the dark. Or randomly booking a weekend trip without checking if I had work commitments and then being disappointed when I could not just drop everything. And she would say, "You are always working," when I had to decline some last-minute plan, and I would respond that I have a job. And she would say, "Jobs have schedules, but do not you want to just be free sometimes and do something without planning it to death?" And I thought she was just expressing a normal desire for variety and did not realize she was building a case against me in her head. Because the relationship was fine, not perfect, but what relationship is, and we had our routines, our inside jokes, our favorite restaurants, including this Italian place we went to probably twice a month where the owner knew our names and usual orders, and we had Sunday morning breakfast traditions, weeknight dinner spots, and a Thai restaurant we would hit up when neither of us wanted to cook, and we had developed a comfortable life together where she would come over after work and I would already be home usually and we would make dinner together. Well, I would make dinner and she would sit at the counter talking about her day since she was not much of a cook and claimed her mom never taught her. So I handled most of the food preparation and it did not bother me much at the time because it just seemed like a division of labor, and after dinner we would watch shows we were both into and had a whole list of series we were working through together. And she would curl up on the couch with Cooper, who loved her despite her insistence that he shed too much, while I sat in my recliner with my laptop, sometimes answering work emails or researching house projects. And on weekends we would sleep in, grab brunch, run errands together, sometimes hit up Target or Home Goods where she would point out things for our future house even though we were not living together yet, like throw pillows, kitchen gadgets, and decorative items I would never think to buy. And I took it as a sign she was thinking long-term, which seemed like a good thing, because I thought we were building towards something long-term as the relationship had progressed naturally from casual dating to serious commitment where we had met each other's families, spent holidays together, and talked vaguely about future plans, and marriage seemed like the logical next step, so I had even started looking at engagement rings about 2 months before the breakup, spending my lunch breaks browsing jewelry stores and learning about cut and clarity and all that stuff I had never cared about before, talking to Derek about it and asking his girlfriend for advice on what style Ashley might like, thinking maybe next spring would be a good time to propose during a weekend trip somewhere nice and meaningful, with a whole plan forming in my head to take her back to that spot in the mountains where we had gone hiking on one of our early dates, pack a nice picnic, wait for sunset, and do the whole down on one knee thing, figuring I would need about 6 months to save up for the kind of ring that would impress her since she had shown me pictures of her friends' engagement rings before and always pointed out which ones she thought were pretty, all in the $8,000 to $10,000 range, which meant I needed to save aggressively, so I had already opened a separate savings account just for the ring and was putting away about $1,000 a month, cutting back on other expenses and skipping my usual contributions to my Roth IRA for a few months, figuring I could catch up later because the ring felt like the priority. And looking back now, I can see how delusional I was building this whole future in my head while Ashley was busy looking for the exit. And then came the conversation that derailed everything on a Tuesday night in April when I had just gotten home from work, changed out of my office clothes, and was starting dinner, and Ashley came over straight from her shift, walked into the kitchen, and just stood there with this weird expression before saying we need to talk, which is never a good start, so I turned off the stove and gave her my full attention and asked what is up. And she took a deep breath like she was about to jump off a diving board and said, "Brandon, I think we need to break up." The words hung in the air for a second and I felt this weird disconnect between hearing them and actually processing what they meant. "Okay," I said slowly. "Can I ask why?" "You're too nice," she said. And I genuinely thought she was joking at first. "Too nice?" "Yes. You're stable and responsible, and you have your life together. But there's no excitement, no passion. Everything is so predictable with you. I feel like I'm dating my dad or something, and that stung more than I wanted to admit. So you're breaking up with me because I'm responsible." "Don't make it sound like that," she said, getting defensive. "I just need someone with more edge, someone spontaneous, someone who makes me feel alive instead of just comfortable." I stood there processing this. 3 years together, and she was ending it because I was too stable, because I had a mortgage and a 401k, because I preferred planning a nice dinner over randomly driving to Vegas at 2 a.m. "Is there someone else?" I asked, already knowing the answer. She had the decency to look guilty, kind of. "His name is Jake. I met him at my friend Courtney's party last month. He's different from you, more exciting. So you've been seeing this guy for a month." "It's not like that. We've just been talking, getting to know each other. Nothing physical has happened, right? Because emotional affairs don't count apparently. But I want to pursue things with him," she continued, "and it wouldn't be fair to you if I'm thinking about someone else." At least she had that much self-awareness. I nodded slowly. "All right, if that's what you want." She seemed surprised by my calm reaction, probably expected me to beg or argue. "You're okay with this?" "Not really, but I'm not going to force someone to stay who doesn't want to be here." "You're being really mature about this," she said, and I detected a hint of disappointment, like she'd wanted more drama. "Did you drive here?" "Yeah, my car's outside." "You should probably grab your stuff then. You've got clothes in the bedroom, toiletries in the bathroom." She blinked. "Right now? I thought maybe we could talk more about this." "What else is there to talk about, Ashley? You want to date someone more exciting, go date him. I'm not going to sit here and convince you I'm worth staying with. She stood there for another moment, then went to gather her things. Took about 20 minutes. I just kept cooking dinner, listening to her move around the house, collecting her belongings. When she came back downstairs with a duffel bag, she lingered by the door. Brandon, I really did care about you. Past tense, got it. Don't be like that. Like what? You just told me I'm basically boring and you found someone better. How should I be? She didn't have an answer for that, just walked out the door and that was it. 3 years done. I finished making dinner, ate it alone, then called my best friend Derek. She dumped you for being too nice? Derek sounded incredulous. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Apparently I'm not exciting enough. Dude, you own a house, you have a good job, you're not exciting, you're successful, those aren't the same thing. Derek had always been straightforward, which is why we'd been friends since college. Guy had zero filter and exactly the perspective I needed right then. She found some other guy, says he's more spontaneous or whatever. Let me guess, rides a motorcycle, has a bunch of tattoos, works at a bar. Don't know yet. She just said his name is Jake. Well, give it 6 months. She'll figure out that spontaneous guys are fun until you need someone to help pay rent. I appreciated Derek's confidence, but honestly I was too tired to think about karma or revenge or whatever. I just wanted to move on. The next few weeks were weird. Ashley and I had been together long enough that we had overlapping friend groups, which meant people kept asking what happened. I kept it simple. We wanted different things. No need to trash her to mutual friends. What I didn't know was that Ashley was telling a very different story. According to what got back to me through the grapevine, I was controlling and didn't let her have fun and refused to try new things, complete fabrication, but whatever. Let her rewrite history if it makes her feel better about leaving. I focused on work and my house. Had a bathroom renovation I'd been putting off, so I threw myself into that. The master bathroom was original to the house, stuck in 1987 with pink tile, a fiberglass tub shower combo, and a motel-quality vanity. Ripped out the old tile over one weekend, sledgehammer therapy at its finest. Every swing felt like progress, literally tearing down the old to make room for something better. Cooper watched from the doorway, probably wondering why I was destroying the house. The next few weeks were spent installing new gray porcelain tile, upgrading to a modern floating vanity with a vessel sink, replacing the medicine cabinet, swapping the light fixture, and installing a new shower system with a rainfall shower head, and the whole project took about 6 weeks of evenings and weekends, cost around $8,000, but when it was finished the bathroom looked incredible. Derek came over to see it and nodded approvingly, saying this looks professional, way better than that pink nightmare, and it felt good to build something better than sitting around feeling sorry for yourself. I kept my hands busy and my mind occupied, and every evening after work I spent hours on the bathroom. It became my therapy and kept me from thinking too much about Ashley and Jake. Derek came over most weekends to help or just hang out, and we would work on the house, order pizza, watch hockey, simple stuff, but it felt good to have that routine. You seem like you're doing all right, he observed one Saturday while we were painting the bathroom. It's not like she died. We broke up. People break up all the time. Yeah, but 3 years is a long time. You're allowed to be upset about it. I am upset about it, but sitting around moping isn't going to change anything. Derek nodded approvingly. That's the spirit. Hey, speaking of which, my sister wants to set you up with one of her friends. I'm good, thanks. Come on, man, it's just dinner. No pressure, Derek. It's been 3 weeks, so Ashley's probably already going out with Captain Spontaneous. You should get back out there too. He had a point, but I wasn't ready. I needed time to reset and figure out what I actually wanted from my next relationship, and that decision turned out to be the right call because about 6 weeks after the breakup I started hearing stories about Jake. My coworker Brian mentioned seeing Ashley at a concert with some sketchy-looking dude covered in tattoos. Derek's girlfriend reported that Ashley's friend Courtney was concerned about Ashley's new relationship. Even my neighbor Tom somehow had intel about her musician boyfriend who seems to be between jobs. Tom waved me over one evening during a walk with Cooper and said sorry to hear about you and your girlfriend splitting up. Thanks, Tom. These things happen. Probably for the best. Heard she's with some musician now, no steady income from what I understand. How do you even know that? Tom tapped his nose mysteriously. I know people, but you're better off. Nice, stable guy like you shouldn't be with someone who doesn't appreciate that. I didn't ask for details. It wasn't my business anymore. But the information kept coming, each piece filling in more of the picture. Derek did some reconnaissance through mutual friends and social media, sending me updates I never requested but secretly appreciated. Okay, so Jake is 29, works part-time at Vintage Sounds music store, but he calls in sick constantly to practice with his band. His band is called Broken Pavement. They've been together 6 years and played maybe a dozen shows total, mostly at open mic nights, 0 album releases, just crappy SoundCloud recordings with 50 plays each. Why do you know all this? Because it's hilarious. Best part, he got evicted from his last apartment 8 months ago for not paying rent. Been couch surfing ever since, currently staying with his bandmate Steven. But Steven's girlfriend told someone who told Derek's girlfriend that Steven's getting tired of Jake eating all his food. The picture was clear. Jake was 29 going on 19, treating life like extended college where responsibility was optional. He worked part-time when he felt like it, played guitar in a band that practiced constantly but performed rarely. His free spirit meant inability to pay rent, rotating between friends' couches every few weeks. Derek couldn't help himself. Dude, your ex left you for a homeless musician. That's amazing. He's not homeless. He's just housing insecure. He sleeps on couches, Brandon. That's the definition of homeless. Why do you even know all this? Because it's hilarious. You got dumped for being too stable and she traded down to a guy who can't afford his own mattress. I had to admit there was some irony there, but mostly I just felt bad for Ashley. She'd convinced herself she needed excitement and ended up with someone unreliable. The real kicker came 3 months after our breakup. I was at Home Depot buying supplies for a deck project when I ran into Ashley in the garden section. She looked different, thinner, tired, wearing clothes I didn't recognize. Her hair was different too, cut shorter with some kind of edgy style that didn't really suit her. Brandon, she said, seeming genuinely surprised to see me. Hey, Ashley, how have you been? Good, really good, just busy with work and everything. That's good. Awkward silence. She kept glancing at me like she looked like she wanted to say something but couldn't figure out how. So I said, I heard you're seeing someone, trying to fill the silence. And she said, Jake. Yeah, he's great. Really artistic and free-spirited, that's what you wanted. Yeah, exactly, but she didn't sound convinced. How about you, seeing anyone? Not really, been focusing on work and fixing up the house, right? The house, she said it with this weird tone like the house was somehow a negative thing, always something to fix. That's home ownership. Another awkward pause. She was definitely waiting for me to ask something, but I had no idea what. Well, I should get going, I finally said. Good seeing you. Wait, Brandon, she touched my arm. Can we talk, like actually talk, maybe grab coffee sometime? Red flag, major red flag. I don't think that's a good idea. Please, I just want to catch up as friends. Every instinct told me to say no, but I made the mistake of being polite. Maybe I'll text you. I didn't text her. 2 days later she texted me, then again the next day. Then she called and left a voicemail about how she really needed to talk and it was important. Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet her for coffee that Saturday. She showed up 15 minutes late, apologizing about how Jake needed to borrow her car to get to practice and she lost track of time returning it. Already not a great start. We ordered our drinks and sat down and Ashley launched into what was clearly a prepared speech about how much she'd been thinking about us and our relationship and how she'd learned a lot over the past few months. I let her talk, sipping my coffee, waiting for the actual point. The thing is, she finally said, I think I made a mistake breaking up with you. There it was. Okay, I said neutrally. Jake is great, but he's just so unreliable. He can't keep a job, he's always broke, and he expects me to pay for everything. I'm exhausted, Brandon. I forgot what it was like to be with someone who actually has their life together. So you want to get back together? She nodded eagerly. I know I hurt you and I'm so sorry about that, but I think we were really good together. We could try again. I took another sip of coffee, processing what she just said. She left me because I was too boring, spent 3 months with an unreliable guy, and now wanted to come back because she missed having someone pay for dinner. No, she blinked. No, I'm not interested in getting back together. Brandon, come on, we had 3 years together, that has to mean something. It did mean something until you decided it didn't and left for someone more exciting. I was confused. I didn't know what I wanted. And now you do, conveniently after realizing your new boyfriend can't afford his own apartment. She flinched. That's not fair. You know what's not fair? Being dumped because you're too responsible, being told you're not exciting enough, then being expected to take you back once you realize responsibility is actually important. I made a mistake, she said, tears starting to form. People make mistakes. They do, and mistakes have consequences. Mine is that I don't trust you anymore. Please, Brandon, I'm asking for another chance, and I'm saying no. I'm sorry things didn't work out with Jake, but that's not my problem to solve. She stared at me, probably expecting me to cave like I always had during our relationship, but I was done being the safe backup plan. So that's it? She asked. 3 years together and you won't even try. You ended those 3 years, Ashley, not me. I would have kept trying. You wanted something different. I stood up, leaving my half-finished coffee. I hope you figure out what you're looking for, but it's not going to be with me. I walked out. Before she could respond, got in my truck and drove home. Felt better than I had in months. Derek called that night. Heard you ran into Ashley, news travels fast. She texted Courtney crying about how you wouldn't take her back. Courtney told my girlfriend, you know how it goes. Let me guess, now I'm the bad guy for not forgiving her. Pretty much. According to the story, you're being cold and holding a grudge. But between you and me, everyone's actually impressed you didn't cave. Why would I cave? Because you're a nice guy, and nice guys usually take back their exes when they come crawling back. Maybe I'm done being that nice. Good, stick to your boundaries. She made her choice. Over the next few weeks, I heard through various sources that things with Jake were deteriorating rapidly. He'd gotten kicked out of another friend's place and was now staying with Ashley in her apartment. She was covering all the bills while he focused on his music career. The band had exactly 0 paid gigs lined up but plenty of practices. Jake contributed to the household by occasionally buying fast food with money he borrowed from Ashley. Her friends were staging informal interventions, telling her telling her to dump him, and she kept defending him, saying he just needed time to find his creative direction. Meanwhile, I finished the deck project, started dating again, and generally moved on with my life. I went on a few dates that didn't lead anywhere, which was fine, I wasn't in a rush. Then about 5 months after our coffee shop conversation, I met Rachel. She was a landscape architect working on a commercial project my firm was partnering with, one of those mixed-use developments with retail, office space, and residential units that required coordination between multiple teams. My firm was handling the civil engineering aspects, and her company was designing the outdoor spaces and landscaping. Our first meeting was in a conference room with about 12 other people, going over site plans and discussing how the grading and drainage needed to work with her landscape design. She was the only woman in the room, and she commanded attention immediately, not through volume or aggression, but through competence and confidence. When the project manager for the developer suggested moving a drainage swale that would have destroyed her design, she calmly explained why that wouldn't work using actual engineering principles and site analysis data, not opinions or feelings, but facts. Half the engineers in the room looked impressed, including me. After the meeting, I caught up with her in the parking lot and said that was impressive in there. Most landscape architects I work with don't understand drainage calculations. She smiled and said most landscape architects never worked construction before switching careers, that she spent 5 years as a surveyor and site manager before going back to school and learned to speak engineer fluently. We ended up talking in the parking lot for 20 minutes about career paths, the project, and the challenges of coordinating multidisciplinary teams. She was sharp, direct, and funny in a dry way that reminded me of Derek. When we finally said goodbye, I found myself hoping we'd have more meetings on this project. And we did. Over the next month, we had probably 6 coordination meetings as the project developed, and each time I noticed more things about her, how she prepared thoroughly for every meeting, always having answers ready for anticipated questions, how she advocated firmly for good design principles while being willing to compromise on things that didn't matter, and how she treated everyone the same, whether they were the developer CEO or the junior engineer taking notes. After our 3rd project meeting, the whole team went to lunch at the sandwich shop nearby, and I ended up sitting next to Rachel, and we spent the hour talking about everything except work. Turned out we both hiked, both owned our own places, and both had similar views on how adults should handle their lives. She had funny stories about difficult clients and nightmare projects, and I told her about my bathroom renovation and the pink tile demolition therapy. Demolition therapy? she repeated, laughing. I like that. I refinished my entire deck last year after a bad breakup. Nothing says moving on like 8 hours of sanding and staining. She asked what happened with the breakup if I didn't mind her asking, and I told her she dated a guy for 2 years who claimed he was going to start his own business, never did, just kept talking about it while working part-time at a gym and living off her, and when she finally called him out on it, he said she was being unsupportive of his dreams. Apparently supporting someone means paying all their bills while they dream. I said that sounded familiar and told her my ex left me because I was too stable and boring. Rachel raised an eyebrow and said, too stable, that's like complaining water is too wet, right? And I said she wanted someone more spontaneous and exciting and found a musician who lives on friends' couches. Rachel asked how that was working out for her, and I said based on what I hear, not great. We shared a look of mutual understanding, the kind that passes between people who've learned similar lessons about relationships. After our 4th project meeting, I asked if she wanted to grab dinner sometime outside of work. Not a date necessarily, just continuing the conversation without 12 other people around, and she said yes without hesitation. We went to a steakhouse that Friday and talked for 3 hours straight about work, families, goals, and experiences. She told me about building her landscape architecture business from scratch 5 years ago, how she started as a solo operation working out of her condo and now had 4 employees and a small office. I told her about buying my house, the renovations I'd done, and my plans for eventually flipping houses as a side business in retirement. You've got a plan, she observed. I like that. Too many people just drift through life hoping things work out. I dated someone who preferred drifting. Didn't end well. I said I dated someone who thought plans where she thought plans were oppressive, and that also didn't end well, and we started seeing each other regularly after that, dinner once or twice a week, weekend hikes with Cooper, working on projects at our respective houses, and it felt natural and easy, like we'd known each other much longer than we actually had. Rachel appreciated that I had stability and a plan. She owned her own condo, a 2-bedroom place she'd bought 3 years ago in a neighborhood similar to mine, and she understood the realities of home ownership. We'd spend weekends hiking the trails around Boulder or working on our respective properties. Sometimes she'd come over and help me with projects, actually helping instead of just watching. Other times I'd go to her place and assist with her yard work or repairs. She owned her own small business that was actually profitable, not just a dream, and she talked about a client list, a portfolio, employees she paid on time. She understood deadlines, responsibilities, and why you can't just blow off work to be spontaneous. You know what I like about you? She said one Saturday while we were planting trees in her backyard. She'd designed a complete landscape renovation for her own place, and I'd volunteered to help with the heavy lifting. My stunning good looks. Besides that, you're reliable. I know if you say, you're going to do something, you'll do it. That's rare. Is that a compliment or an insult? It's definitely a compliment. I dated a guy last year who was all excitement and adventure. Know what happened? He forgot to pay his car insurance and totaled my car in an accident. Being boring is underrated. I prefer to think of it as responsible. Same thing, and it's attractive. We'd been dating about 2 months when I ran into Ashley again. This time at a grocery store, and this time she was with Jake. He looked exactly how I'd imagined. Skinny jeans despite being too old for them, vintage band t-shirt, sleeve tattoos, the works. They were arguing in the produce section about whether they could afford organic vegetables. Ashley saw me first, and her face went through several expressions in rapid succession before settling on forced cheerfulness. Brandon, hi. Hey, Ashley. I nodded at Jake. You must be Jake. He sized me up with obvious suspicion. Yeah, you're the ex. That's me. Awkward silence while Ashley fidgeted with a bag of apples. So what have you been up to? She asked, clearly trying to fill the silence. Not much, work, house projects, the usual. How about you? Good, really good. Jake's band just booked a show. Jake jumped in. Yeah, we're opening for this band from Denver at this club. It's going to be huge. That's great. Congratulations. More awkward silence. I was very aware of Jake studying me, probably trying to figure out why Ashley had dated me, and I was equally aware that I didn't care what he thought. Well, I should finish shopping, I said. Good seeing you both. I walked away before Ashley could extend the conversation. As I turned down the next aisle, I heard Jake saying something about that guy seems boring and Ashley's defensive response. Rachel found the whole thing amusing when I told her later. Your ex is living with an unemployed musician who thought grocery shopping was a good time to brag about opening for a band nobody's heard of, apparently, and she left you for him. I was too nice, remember? Well, she definitely fixed that problem. Rachel shook her head. Some people don't know what they have until they lose it. Her loss, my gain. Simple statement, but it meant more than she probably realized. For the first time since Ashley and I broke up, I felt genuinely happy about how things had turned out. That should have been the end of the story. I'd moved on, started dating someone great, and Ashley was living with her exciting boyfriend in what sounded like a slowly unfolding disaster. Clean break. Everyone moves forward. The end. But Ashley had other plans. It started with text messages. Random things at first, like sending me memes she thought I'd find funny or asking questions about home repair stuff. I kept my responses short and polite, but didn't encourage deeper conversation. Then she started commenting on my social media posts. I'd share a picture of a hiking trail and she'd comment about how she missed hiking together. I'd post about finishing a house project and she'd reply with, "You always were so good at that stuff." Rachel noticed. "Your ex is being weird on Instagram." "Yeah, I know. I'll talk to her." I messaged Ashley privately. "Hey, I appreciate you being friendly, but the constant commenting is awkward. I'm seeing someone and it's not appropriate." Her response came immediately. "I'm just being nice. We can't be friends. I think it's better if we keep our distance." "That's so unfair. You're with someone new, but I can't even talk to you." "I'm not stopping you from talking to me. I'm asking you to respect boundaries," and she didn't respond to that, and the commenting stopped for about a week. Then she called me at 11 p.m. on a Thursday. I was already in bed, so I sent it to voicemail. Then she called again, and finally I answered and said, "Ashley, what's wrong? I need help." Her voice was shaky like she'd been crying. "Jake and I got into a fight and he left. I don't know where he went and I can't afford rent by myself and I don't know what to do." "Okay, take a breath. What happened?" She launched into this rambling story about how Jake had gotten fired from the music store for showing up late too many times, then spent their rent money on new guitar equipment because he needed it for the band, and when she confronted him about it, he called her controlling and stormed out. "That's rough," I said, genuinely sympathetic despite everything. "Have you called his friends?" "They're not answering." "Brandon, I'm freaking out here. My rent is due in 3 days and I don't have it." "What about your parents?" "They'll just say I told you so about Jake." "I can't deal with that right now." I sat up in bed, fully awake now. "Ashley, why are you calling me?" "Because you always knew what to do. You were always so responsible and practical." "I'm seeing someone. Remember, this is inappropriate." "I'm not asking you to get back together. I just need advice." "Please, Brandon." I wouldn't ask if I wasn't desperate. Against my better judgment, I spent 20 minutes on the phone talking her through her options. She could ask her landlord for a payment extension, pick up extra shifts at work, move to a cheaper apartment, or finally call her parents and ask for help, even if it came with lectures. "But what if Jake comes back and needs a place to stay?" she asked. "Ashley, from what you just told me, he spent your rent money on guitar gear. Maybe him leaving is a blessing. You don't understand, he's under a lot of pressure with the band. The band that doesn't pay him." Silence. "Look," I continued, "I'm not trying to be harsh, but you need to prioritize yourself here. Figure out your housing situation first, then worry about Jake. I know you're right. I just wish." "Wish what?" "Nothing. Thank you for talking me through this. I know it's weird me calling you. It is weird, but I hope you figure it out. Brandon, I'm sorry for everything. For how I ended things. For what I said about you being boring. You were never boring. You were stable and I was too dumb to appreciate it. I appreciate you saying that, but it doesn't change anything. I know, I just wanted you to know." We hung up and I lay awake for another hour processing the conversation. Part of me felt bad for her, but a bigger part was relieved I dodged whatever situation she was currently living in. Rachel asked about it the next day. I gave her the summary, and she looked thoughtful. "You were pretty kind to spend that much time helping her figure things out." "I know, but she sounded genuinely desperate." "That's because she is desperate. She's realizing that exciting and spontaneous doesn't pay the bills." Rachel paused. "You know she's going to keep calling you, right?" "Maybe, but I made it clear I'm not getting back together with her." "Doesn't matter. In her mind, you're the solution to all her problems, The responsible guy who has his life together and will fix everything. Rachel was absolutely right. The calls kept coming. 2 days later, Ashley texted asking if I knew any affordable apartments, then asked if I could co-sign on a lease since her credit was bad, then wondered if I had any extra work she could pick up. Each request escalated, testing boundaries, and each time I kept my responses brief. These weren't my problems to solve. About a week later, Derek called laughing. Ashley showed up at my place asking if I could convince you to help her out. Seriously? She showed up crying, saying you were ignoring her. I told her that she dumped you for being too nice, so expecting you to bail her out was insane. Reminded her she threw away a guy with a house and a job for a couch surfer. Harsh. She needed it. Told her to call her parents and leave you alone. The calls stopped after that. 3 weeks of silence. Then Courtney texted, Ashley got evicted. Jake left her. She's on my couch in a bad place financially. Just wanted you to know in case she reaches out. I appreciated Courtney's heads up, but it confirmed what I already suspected. The exciting, spontaneous life Ashley had wanted came with consequences she wasn't prepared for. I showed Rachel the text. She read it and handed my phone back. Do you feel bad for her? A little, I admitted, but not bad enough to get involved. Good, because this is what happens when you make impulsive decisions based on excitement instead of logic. She wanted adventure and spontaneity, she got it, and it turns out adventure without stability is just chaos. Rachel was right, but I'd be lying if I said part of me didn't feel guilty. 3 years is a long time to share your life with someone. Seeing them struggle isn't satisfying, it's just sad. But I also knew that helping Ashley would send the wrong message. It would tell her that she could make terrible decisions and I'd always be there to catch her. That's not kindness, that's enabling. 2 months later, I was at a work happy hour when my phone buzzed. Text from a number I didn't recognize. Brandon, this is Ashley's mom, Linda. I know you and Ashley aren't together anymore, but I wanted to thank you. I don't know what you said to her, but she finally called us for help. She's moved back home and is getting back on her feet. She told me that talking to you made her realize she needed to take responsibility for her choices. Thank you for being firm with her when we couldn't be. I showed Rachel the text later that night. Her mom thanked me for not taking her back. Apparently, tough love worked. Good for Ashley. Sounds like she's finally learning that actions have consequences. I texted Linda back. I'm glad she's getting the help she needs. Best of luck to all of you. Short, polite, final. Rachel and I got engaged 8 months later, bought a bigger house together, combined our lives in ways that felt natural and healthy. She never once complained that I was too nice or too boring or too stable because she understood that those qualities weren't flaws, they were foundations. I heard through the grapevine that Ashley eventually got a better job, saved up enough to get her own place again, and was dating someone who worked in finance, someone stable and responsible. Guess she figured out what she actually needed after all. Jake, last I heard, was still couch surfing and still playing in bands that never quite made it. Living the dream, I suppose. As for me, I'm living my own version of the dream. Got a wife who appreciates stability, a house we're renovating together, 2 dogs now instead of 1, and a life that might be boring to some people, but feels exactly right to me. Guys, we are so close to hit 100,000 subscribers on this channel. If you are not subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing. It really helps hit that 100,000 mark.